The Cuban trade and travel embargo just got another voice with the launch of the Engage Cuba Idaho State Council. This is a group being led by the governor, a longtime proponent of easing trade restrictions with Cuba. Our Brian Holmes has the story of today's gathering of local ag and business leaders who hope to convince Congress to lift that embargo.
Last March, President Obama made the first turn to open the door to trade with Cuba when he visited the island nation. The goal of the trip, to continue the work of reopening diplomatic ties to the communist country.
It's something that Cubans have really indicated to me that they have an interest in.
Today, that task took root in the Gem State with the announcement of the Engage Cuba Idaho State Council, the 11th state to join the coalition.
There's huge interest. There's interest from the ag folks, there's interest from the business community, there's interest from the university community, and there's just overall interest in being part of changing history in a positive way.
Luke Albee is the senior advisor to the group, and he says that positive change will need two things. The first would be continuing to ease travel restrictions, policies that have been in place for more than 5 decades.
You and I could travel to North Korea if we wanted. We could travel to Damascus. But you actually have to sign an affidavit. You have to have a pre-approved itinerary in order to travel to Cuba.
The second phase would be trade. Right now, Albee says, Cuba, a $2 billion market the rest of the world has access to, can only pay in cash for American goods, limiting their ability to import products from, say, Idaho.
To us, it's both a matter of fairness, it's a matter of freedom, and there are economic opportunities for Idaho businesses.
It's the same sentiment shared by Governor Butch Otter, absent from today's gathering, who will lead the contingent that hopes to further break down political barriers by way of economics. Brian Holmes, Idaho's News Channel 7.
And then this, Engage Cuba claims the island would be the #1 Caribbean destination for Americans should restrictions be lifted, and that change took a step closer to reality today when the Department of Transportation proposed 8 U.S. cities to begin flights to Cuba in the fall. The closest ones to Boise are L.A. and Houston. 8 airlines, including Alaska Air, have been awarded tentative routes to Cuba. U.S. Transportation Secretary calls this a most important step toward delivering on President Obama's promise to re-engage Cuba. Officials say restoring regular air service holds tremendous potential to reunite Cuban-American families and expand U.S. business, and that means right here in Idaho, where the governor is hoping to start sending a lot of potatoes down there and more.
We'll keep following it, and coming up next,